I had it coming. I tempted fate. All the videos that I kept bragging about how warm it was through September, through October, through most of November, and now it's freezing. I'm actually way too cold in what I'm wearing. It's windy, it's cold, it's damp, it's overcast. It's just, This is a great time to talk about what to wear when you want to ride in these kind of conditions and colder. My previous video, which I'll link to above, has the gloves and what to do with your hands. My next video will be about the feet, but this is about the clothing. If you want to see the next video or any other of my videos, please subscribe and check out my playlists. So let's get to it. I'm going to go through what I like to wear on a ride to stay warm. So first off, just getting around the city in the 15-20 degree range. I'm still wearing shorts, might be in a t-shirt depending on how far I'm going. If I want to be a little bit warmer, I'll put on just a simple shirt. Now, this happens to be a cycling specific shirt, but you know, anything will do. This is commuting. We're not talking about cycling specific wear. I just happen to have a lot of cycling specific wear. If it's particularly windy or uncomfortable, this is a nice windproof jacket. This one is from Bontrager, but again, you don't have to wear cycling specific stuff. You do want your arms to be long enough though. One thing I find about cycling specific clothing is that when you're on your bike, your sleeves tend to ride up a little bit when you hunch over. And that's something regular clothing or even regular athletic clothing may not offer you. So that's something that you have to decide. And a lot of the commuting and just getting around stuff, I'm going to be showing you cycling specific stuff, but please do not take that as an implication that you have to buy cycling specific stuff to get around the city. You don't. I just happen to, well, be a crazy cycling guy, and I do. But a lot of the stuff you can just get around with, you know, I'm just talking about layering and what I'm going to wear. Cycling in the city, especially depending on how far you're going, there's a sort of a breaking point. I believe it's 20 minutes. For you, it'll depend on you, how long you can ride before you get hot. I feel like 20 minutes is sort of that breaking point. After 20 minutes, you've built up a lot of energy and heat and you start sweating. So this is why layering is really important. But in that 15-20 degree range, you know, you can still get cooled by the fact that it's a bit cooler without having to have extra layers on. And a jacket like this, I mean, if you're commuting, you probably have a bag or somewhere to store it. You can quickly take it off and continue on your way. Next, gravel road riding. I'm not going to be wearing anything specifically revolutionary here. I just got my bib shorts on and then a wool t-shirt. This is not a cycling specific t-shirt. This is just something from Icebreaker. If you want to wear a jersey with back pockets, there are plenty out there. It's up to you and how you ride. This is what I'm wearing. Again, if it's getting a little bit chillier, I have a packable light windbreaker. This is from Fox. I'll also be wearing slightly warmer gloves at this point. Now, if I'm mountain biking, same shirt. Maybe I'll even be wearing the same bibs or just a regular mountain bike liner underneath. Probably wearing knee pads, elbow pads, maybe core guard, depending on what kind of riding I'm doing and where I'm doing it. Nothing much has changed. Again, depending on what kind of jersey you like or not, I'm just fine in a t-shirt. And again, if it's a little bit windy, I have my packable Fox jacket, any sort of wind packable jacket. So now we get into pants. Now we get into the 10 to 15 degree. I've got pants on now. These just happen to be cycling specific pants. Unfortunately, they're discontinued. Levi's used to have a line of pants called the commuters. That's what these are. There's a company called Doer that still makes more cycling specific stuff. What does cycling specific jeans actually means? Slightly longer. When your pants leg is sort of normal when you're walking. When you get on a bike, see, I'm wearing ankle socks. See the pant leg goes up. So that's one of these cycling specific features. Usually they're a little bit longer, even for the same inseam length. And the other one is they're slightly stretchy. These have a little bit of spandex included, sort of the Doer pants. The great thing about cycling specific pants is that they're just good regular pants, right? Like they're not going to be out of the ordinary for when you're off the bike. So something you might want to try out. I'm not saying you need to get specific cycling jeans, but it does really make the ride a little bit more pleasant. I'm wearing just a regular Icebreaker sweatshirt. This isn't cycling specific, whatever sweatshirt you're going to be wearing. Again, thin layers is the way to go. And lastly, I still have that jacket that I had earlier. Now this is layered with a sweatshirt underneath. Gives it a nice extra layer of wind resistance and again, a little bit of water protection. If it's raining, I'm going to link to a video here about my recommendation of what to do in rain, especially in this type of weather, which is a rain cape. Now you can get rain specific Gore-Tex gear, and I talk about that in my other video, but generally I don't recommend it, especially for getting around the city. That's more of a performance-oriented thing. So go check out that video for an explanation of that. I'm not going to repeat myself here. Now we're into the road and gravel portion. Still just wearing my bibs. Some people might find their legs cold. I leave that up to you. You can get long bibs, so I leave that up to you what your temperature range is and how you feel comfortable at the 10 to 15 degree mark. I generally still just want my legs exposed. The other thing you're going to find is your feet are going to start getting cold. I have a pair of icebreaker socks, just little low-cut ones. I have a set for all the different ranges, so at 10 to 15 I'm wearing these. I may wear little shoe covers. I'll talk more about that in the footwear video that I'll post later. Lastly, this is something that's great that I find I use a lot, which is arm warmers. You notice I'm still just wearing my merino wool t-shirt, but I have arm warmers. This is great. You get started. If you're cold throughout the ride and this is all you need, then you just keep your arm warmers on. But if you get too hot, you can just peel them off and stick them into your back pocket if you're wearing a jersey, or into your handlebar bag or your frame bag or wherever it is. They crunch up pretty small and away they go. These are fantastic. I highly recommend having these also for your legs. Maybe you can just use leg warmers. That's a similar product, but for your legs. These are from Pearl Zumi. They're great. I've had them for a while. I highly recommend getting the kind that have the sort of elastic, grippy side so that they stay up on your arms and they don't slide down. One thing that I've discovered recently is the joy of vests. This is the 7-mesh Chilco vest. What's great about it is that it is incredibly packable, and the bag comes with these loops that go around your frame or your seat or wherever. And then when you need it, or more importantly, when you don't, you might start with your ride wearing this and then get too warm. Then you can pack it away and be at a good temperature. Even though this is more of a road-specific clothing item, I actually wear this a lot mountain biking as well. It's pretty versatile. What's great about this fabric from 7-mesh is that it's kind of wind resistant without feeling like you're wearing a waterproof layer, and that's great because then you don't end up sweating as much, and it's just a much better experience overall. So I highly recommend it. The 10 to 15 mark for mountain biking. I've now got thin layer, just 3/4 tights under my shorts, just to keep that extra warmth down there, plus my chamois and the shorts over top. I may or may not be wearing knee pads again and elbow pads, depending on what kind of ride I'm doing. Still have my wool t-shirt on. Maybe I'll be wearing a long sleeve shirt, depending on the conditions. I have this vest that I've been showing in the other types of rides as well. This dress is, again, very versatile. I love it. At this point, I'm wearing some thin, slightly higher wool socks for mountain biking. And if I'm getting a little bit cold, you can always throw on this packable windbreaker that goes on top. Gets me the little bit extra warmth that I might need, and away I go. Now we're in the 5 to 10 degree temperature range, which just happens to be the actual temperature range that's happening right now for me outside at this moment, making this video for you. And this is where it starts getting a bit tricky. And I say it's tricky is because each individual's personal temperature sort of acclimatization and what they feel comfortable with takes a much greater role. So, you know, what you find comfortable maybe not be what I find comfortable. I am 175 pounds, 6 feet tall. These things all impact how warm I need to be and how much heat I generate when I'm cycling. And so for you, that might be different. But hopefully the recommendations I give do apply to you, maybe at a different temperature range than what I'm stating, but regardless. This is a much warmer vest. This is a down insulated vest. This is something that I'll frequently wear just around. I have a wool sweatshirt on that I had on before. The other thing about riding at this time of year when it's this cold is that it's dark real early, especially in the fall. Spring, it's not exactly the same thing, but in the fall, definitely. And so the other thing you have to be worried about is being visible. I know there's a lot of debate about city cycling and commuting and the responsibility of visibility and stuff. Doesn't matter, I like to be visible. This is a ProViz 360 jacket. There's a light shining directly at you. You just go off like a light bulb. This is a great investment. This is also waterproof. Now, again, based on what I said earlier, I don't necessarily ride in this kind of stuff when it's raining, But the great thing about this is that this is windproof. The thing about this time of year and when it gets colder is that you need something to really guard against the wind. And so this is a great jacket. And this is a very cycling specific jacket. Obviously it's cut a bit short in the front, a little bit longer in the back. There are jackets like this for joggers and other outdoor pursuits. So, you know, get whatever you feel comfortable with. Of course, any sort of windproof, waterproof jacket will work at this time of year. Anything will do. It doesn't have to be Gore-Tex, doesn't have to be specifically expensive. It's just something that you can take off and on easily depending on your warmth. You'll hear a lot of the stuff about layering, and layering is fantastic, but the problem with layering is a lot of people, when they grab different layers, they grab the mid layers. And the problem with mid layers is that you have to take off your outer layer to get to your mid layer to change it. And so this is an example of one of those outer layers. But you can cycle through this, right? The problem is that if you take this off as the layering thing that you take off, now you have no wind protection. And so there are windproof or wind resistant mid layers out now. There's a few companies that make fabric that has like a wind resistant coating on the end of like a sweatshirt or a fleece. So that is one option, to layer those so that when you take this off as your layer that's easy to take off, you still have something wind resistant underneath so that the wind doesn't hit you when you're riding at speed. So for a gravel road ride, at this point I'm wearing full-length tights and a thermal full-length jersey. This is traditional jersey from Gore. I don't know if they still particularly make this one. It's warm, offers a little bit of wind resistance. If I need a little bit extra, I still have my vest, which I can layer on top of it, or my packable light wind jacket for yet another layer. This is an incredibly versatile piece of kit. I can't stress this enough, because you can just layer, you know, you think this is your outer layer, but you can always layer on top of that for more warmth. And again, if you end up getting too warm, you can take this off and strap it in your back and you're done and you're going. For the feet, at this point, I'm wearing, these are mid-weight icebreaker socks. They have a little bit of cushioning at the bottom and they give you that extra little bit of warmth. I also am not wearing regular road or gravel shoes at this particular time of year. I'll get to that in my cycling shoe and footwear video. Now we're getting to mountain biking. I'm still wearing shorts. You may want to move to pants at this point. I still find I'm happy with shorts, especially if I'm wearing knee pads. I'm wearing usually tall socks at this point, so there's very little skin exposed anyways. Probably merino wool socks and a riding shirt. I really got into riding shirts recently. These are fantastic. This one's for Pearl Izumi. What's interesting about it is the front is got a insulated layer, but the back is not insulated. I find this riding shirt works really, really well, and it's versatile because, you know, I can stop, get somewhere, and still not look like I'm cycling. The other thing I find about mountain biking is that you probably want to take, for instance, that insulated vest that I showed earlier with you, because unlike road riding, I find you stop with mountain biking more often. You'll stop somewhere, rest. You're more likely to have a mechanical, more likely to have a puncture, whatever it may be. Once you stop riding, you'll cool down very, very quickly. So having more layers with you, especially when it gets below 15 degrees, is very important. So I recommend you bring layers with you. And now we're in probably one of the most difficult temperatures to dress for, which is 0 to 5 degrees. And the reason it's difficult is because the dampness really gets to you. That damp, chill air just goes through everything. I feel that it's actually easier to dress to below freezing than it is just above freezing. Just above freezing is the trickiest temperature to dress for. I have a puffy insulated jacket. This isn't down, this is just a synthetic fill. This is windproof. This just happens to be Gore Windstopper, but you know, anything similar, Patagonia makes jackets like this. You can get stuff at Decathlon for very inexpensive. You want to make sure that the sleeves stay at your wrists when you lean forward, so the sleeve length has to be long enough. That's probably one of the most important things. I'm also at this point wearing an icebreaker wool buff that goes over my face and a thin icebreaker wool beanie, which fits very nicely under my helmet, keeping my head and my ears warm. Again, there are both wool and synthetic versions of this type of product You don't have to go with this particular one, but you get the idea. These work very well. I've been really happy with these icebreaker ones. Lastly, there's what to do with your legs. Again, I'm just wearing regular jeans, right? This is city commuting now or city traveling. I don't want to have to find a bathroom to take off thermal tights underneath my pants. That's not a practical solution. So what I have here is just some overpants. They are very simple. They don't have a belt or a snap or anything. They're just elastic. These are the light bike gore wear ones, but you can get, again, much cheaper stuff. You don't have to go as expensive as I did. And these are very thin, very breathable, and you slide them all over your legs, and they keep you warm. And this is a good solution to below freezing as well. And you have the added bonus of these are waterproof. Again, if you ride with these for too long, you might find that you start sweating in them a bit too much, depending on, again, on what your thermal threshold is and how long your commute is. But the great thing about this is that it's a layer. If you get too warm, you can always just take them off. So for road and gravel riding, I have now a warmer set of tights. These are a really old pair from Sugoi, but they make similar items nowadays. Their main feature is that they have a windproof front, but not a back, allowing you to dissipate excess heat off the back, but preventing wind chill in the front. This Pro Izumi cycling jacket, it is a soft shell, so it has wind resistance on the front. This is a very simple base layer from Decathlon, super cheap. You can get these in different weights. This is a very thin one, super thin, but you can get much heavier ones depending on how cold you're getting. Similarly, this is a simple base layer from Costco, merino wool with a bit of polyester blend for durability and stretchiness. Again, these are warmer, and again, you can get these in different thicknesses from different brands, from different stores. Again, not cycling specific. You just add more layers. You'll notice that this jacket is white, very bright color. Again, at this time of year, especially if you're starting in the morning, you're going to be invisible if you're wearing black. It's very tempting to wear all black. Don't do it, get something bright. This is white, you can also get high-vis stuff. Highly recommended. Your life is more important than your fashion sense, trust me. Now for mountain biking at 0 to 5 degrees. This is a Fox Ranger jacket. It has Polartec sleeves and a windproof chest. So the arms aren't windproof, but the chest is. But it has little ventilation holes so you don't get too sweaty when you stop. This I find is a great thermal solution. Again, you could be wearing just a thermal jersey and a vest on top, which you can layer on and off. I have a pair of Fox Defend pants on. These fit my pads underneath, plus chamois or whatever you want to wear underneath. I'm also going to be wearing the before mentioned mid-layer socks. The other option is still to go with what I showed you in road, which is a pair of tights and then just a pair of shorts over it if you don't want the tights look while you're mountain biking. Now that we're getting to below freezing temperatures, I want to discuss something that's quite important. Before I talked about layering and how layering is important for regulating body temperature because you don't want to get too hot and too sweaty. Below freezing, this is so much more important, but it's also harder. Think about it. You're on the trail, you're on the road, you're somewhere, and you're too hot, and you need to take off a layer. Well, how do you do that when it's freezing, right? I mean, you can, but it's quite uncomfortable. And if the conditions are bad, let's say there's sleet or middle of a blizzard, how do you change out a mid layer? One of the things I'll show you later is simply just have a packable hard shell that you can put over your semi-hard shell like this or any other type of. The other thing you may have noticed up to this point in the video is that when I talk about city riding or commuting, I am dressed much warmer than for mountain biking or gravel riding. And that is because you don't get as hot while riding around the city, generally, unless you're really booting it to get somewhere on time. Generally, you're riding at a more leisurely pace, you're going a shorter distance, you're not riding for as long, and so you're generally going to be colder and you want to be comfortable if you, for instance, get off your bike and you're walking to a store or meeting with some friends or whatever. And so this jacket, when I'm riding hard, probably wouldn't want it until -10, -15. Meanwhile, for commuting, I want it at 5 degrees. So this is riding in the city between -5 and freezing. I'm wearing this jacket with simple layer underneath. And now what I've done is I've put a hard shell pant over top of my jeans to protect your legs against the wind, because otherwise that wind will just go right through your jeans and you will be very happy. I'm now wearing my balaclava, which I can put over my nose, my face, different configurations. I like having the two separate, the hat and the balaclava, because it makes it a little bit easier to vary. And of course you can always take this off. This is a very thin one from Icebreaker. I like it a lot. Anything like this will do. So here's what I probably would wear road or gravel riding in below freezing temperatures, from maybe -5 to about freezing. However, I generally don't ride below freezing on road or gravel, and that's for several reasons. One, on roads, at least here, are salted. They're salted heavily. Salted is horrible on the drivetrain. I work and maintain my commuter bike so it lasts through the winter, but I don't want to maintain more than one bike for the road salt that is really harsh on the drivetrain and pretty much any part of your bike. The other is the trail conditions are such that if I'm off-road gravel, chances are there's also ice, and I generally only have one bike set up for that kind of riding, and that's my fat bike. So I'm wearing my thermal tights with the front, more insulated front. I have 2 wool layers under here, and then I have my outdoor soft shell cycling jersey. And if it gets cold, I would layer a hard shell on top of this. And of course, the biggest thing, as I mentioned earlier, is making sure your face is protected. So I have this separate wool buff along with my wool beanie. I can ride this up quite high, have very little parts of my skin exposed depending on how cold it is. But generally, like I said, very rarely are conditions right for me to be doing this type of riding outside during this temperature. So now we're mountain biking in below freezing temperatures. This is really fat biking for a lot of people. At this point, I have my cold weather riding pants on. These are from Bontrager, specifically for fat biking. I'm still using my Ranger thermal jacket. Definitely wearing my wool neck tube at this point. And I'm wearing fairly thick wool socks at this point. And underneath, I might be wearing a thin pair of synthetic long underwear, or maybe just a regular pair of thermal tights, again, lightweight. You don't want to get too warm at this temperature, because again, you're going to heat up from the exertion of your ride, and you might start sweating, so be very careful. It's better to ride cold than it is to ride sweaty, because then you'll just end up more cold. Now that we're below -5, in the -10 to -5 range, I have this thicker Icebreaker jacket, and I'm putting my windstopper jacket over top of it. At this point, face starts becoming an issue. So I have this neck gaiter with a special breathable front layer. It helps without fogging up your glasses or your goggles, depending on what you're wearing at this time of year, and just makes it a little bit easier. So I'll put this over, and that's about the addition of my clothing layer at this sort of temperature range. Now that we're getting below -5, so the -10 to -5 range, I might be wearing a thicker wool zip-up jacket underneath this jacket, and or a shell to go over top. This is just a non-cycling specific shell, and you would put this over top of your existing jacket to give you that extra little bit of warmth. For the pants, same pants, thicker layering underneath. -10 and below, I'm wearing an even thicker sweatshirt. I'm swiping out my beanie for a full balaclava, and I have ski goggles with prescription inserts. Pretty much at this temperature, you don't want any bit of your skin exposed, so that's why you want the balaclava. This particular balaclava I like because it has this overlapping side here, so you can still easily pull down the bottom if you need to. It's got a thinner portion of mesh underneath the nose for easier breathing. Same jacket over top, with thicker layers underneath. I'm quite toasty now because it's only about 7 degrees outside. One other thing with the pants, I'm wearing a 3-layer hard shell on the bottom. And then if I'm going to well below freezing, like in the -30 range, then I'm probably wearing thermal tights underneath my jeans, which unfortunately means I will have to change wherever it is I'm going. This of course also depends on how hard you're biking, as I mentioned before. That's about it for commuting. I've generally not gone out below -35. That's about as cold as it gets here where I ride, and this is generally good enough for me. Below -10, I'm now wearing this jacket that I've been wearing for commuting for the previous 15 degrees temperature range. It's only coming on mountain biking now, again, because of the temperature. Underneath, I might only be wearing a wool t-shirt. That's how great this jacket is in terms of warmth. And then I'll layer on more layers like this icebreaker shirt once I'm getting below -20, -35. I have a goggle specific helmet from Burn. The goggles clip into a clip on the back. And my goggles, I'm wearing a full balaclava to minimize any exposed skin because wind chill is becoming a real problem at this temperature. And I'm wearing wool thermal layer underneath my fat biking pants. And again, even with this jacket, if it's getting really cold, it's easier to layer out than in. So I'll bring my hard shell and I'll put my hard shell over top of this soft shell jacket. An extra layer of warmth if it's getting really cold or getting uncomfortable, or the weather changes in some way that you really appreciate having this hard shell out on top. A jacket like this, a light hard shell, can pack up quite small and real easy to take with you wherever you need to go. So to summarize, layers, layers, layers. Layers are very important. Ride cold. It's better to be slightly too cold than too warm and sweating, because then you'll get even colder. Minimize skin exposure, especially below -10 degrees. Once you get to that temperature, frostbite is a serious issue, and it's very unpleasant that the parts of the skin, especially around your face, get very unpleasant, almost burning sensation if it gets too cold. If you get to that conditions, stop, fix whatever you need to do, continue on. Have a good ride. See you out there.